So we're here at Thin Red Line Tactical Studios with Jack and Brooke. And Jack, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So first, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the team for having me on again. I was a fan and a friend of the team before they brought me on, so I really appreciate what they do for the community. My name is Jack Palmieri. I am a 20-year veteran criminal defense attorney. I've been practicing in Florida and New York, on state and federal levels. I have an emphasis on Second Amendment rights. I'm a former prosecutor, and I served a stint at the Public Defender's Office, and I cover the entire state of Florida, so wherever I'm needed, that's where I go.
Wonderful. And Brooke, a little bit about you.
I started at Thin Red Line about 8 months ago. I just work in sales, but I've been helping out for a while and doing a couple fun things. It's really good to be here to ask some questions.
That's awesome to hear. And I'm Walter, and everybody knows me, so let's just move on from that. Now, you brought some questions for Jack. Why don't you jump right into them?
Well, I just wanted to ask some questions, especially with the election coming up and with practicing gun safety and stuff like that. So my first question is, if Amendment 3 passes, what are some of the effects that could come from that?
And now for everybody out there, Amendment 3 is the adult personal use of marijuana, recreational use in Florida for adults over the age of 21. Go ahead, Jack.
So that's a great first question. I thank you both for bringing it up because it affects a lot of areas beyond the amendment itself. And my biggest concern is going to be the confusion and the abuse of the amendment that may come should it pass. I say should it pass because it's on the bill. We don't know. Let's presume for this discussion that it does pass. What could it mean? And I think people are going to unfortunately conflate the idea that they have a right to recreational use as some more overarching blanket immunity and protection from ancillary issues that come up from almost any activity we have in life. So to try and to make it relatable, I would say I see people coming into issues that they might come into with alcohol. As we all know, currently today, alcohol is illegal. If you're over the age of 21, you can drink legally and you can drive after you've had alcohol, presuming that you are under the legal limit and there is a specified measurement in the books and that has not otherwise impaired your ability to operate a motor vehicle.
Do you think that's going to be a downfall with marijuana not having the same testing as alcohol per se, like not having a breathalyzer, a quick something like, hey, this person was high at this time, not having that type of testing?
I think it's going to be an issue with or without a specific numeric value because people are going to think, well, I'm using it, therefore everything I do after that is also permissible, and that's not the case. I hope people don't forget to use it reasonably and most importantly, responsibly. And that's where I'm afraid people are going to get themselves in trouble initially. They're going to think, well, I smoked weed legally and I got in the car, which is also legal, and everything I do is fine, except to the point where a law enforcement officer says, well, we saw you swerving erratically on the street. And by the way, you also hit a median and God forbid something worse. Just like alcohol, which is why I made the parallel, you've now taken something that is initially legal and now used it in an unsafe, unreasonable, and now illegal fashion. And people may overlook that for a while.
Yeah. Jack, wonderful. Thank you so much. Brooke?
Isn't there something about marijuana when you go to purchase a weapon or a gun?
I think she's talking about when Form 4473, it actually asks you, are you an unlawful user or addicted to marijuana or any depressants or narcotics? And then it actually gives you the full warning that the use and possession of marijuana remains unlawful under federal law, regardless if it's legalized or decriminalized for medical or recreational purposes in the state that you reside.
Yeah, so another great topic, and this ties into not just what we were talking about with Amendment 3 and what could happen with the recreational use, but people overlook that this issue that we're talking about applies today with people who get the medical marijuana card. And the issue is the conflict between your rights under the Second Amendment for a firearm and now your privileges, I'll call them, for marijuana use. And my position is, even today in Florida with the medical marijuana cards, the two cannot and do not coexist. It's impossible because one inherently negates the other. With Form 4473 that you just read to it, for you to have a medical marijuana card is all but saying, I use marijuana. And marijuana is still federally illegal and is a prohibition from you legally purchasing a firearm. So the first question becomes, how are you answering the 4473? And is that answer consistent with the rest of your life? Because no one is checking at that moment, but you make it a lot easier to find an inconsistency when you have a medical marijuana card. People overlook that because, much like the marijuana issues on a federal level, no one is currently enforcing the illegality of it, but that does not make it legal.
Yeah, so that was my question with that. So that Form 4473, every time you buy a firearm in the state of Florida, you have to fill that out. But that's a federal form. That is not a state form.
Correct. So the issue is with firearms, the states cannot give you more rights than the federal government does. They can further restrict it, and that's why you see a lot of litigation in states like New York and California, where the states are, in my opinion, overly restricting a U.S. citizen's rights under the Second Amendment, but they cannot give you more rights. So if the federal government is saying you cannot be a medical marijuana user and or a marijuana user and have a firearm, the states can't go and say, yes, you
Yeah,
can.
you can.
Right. It doesn't work that way on this issue. And that's the rub. So while Florida is saying they have no issue with it, they're not saying the federal government has no issue with it. And the federal government has currently been quiet on it. What I don't like about it as an attorney is everyone is leaving themselves exposed. And so to the extent you think you're going to get both, you would want to get a concealed carry license first, because the concealed carry license asks the same kind of questions about marijuana use.
And the medical marijuana card will not ask about your conceal.
Correct. The medical marijuana cards are not worried about your Second Amendment rights that I'm
Correct.
asking. They're just asking, do you have a medical need for it? And I'm a doctor, and I'm saying medically, you need it. Legally, they have no position on it. And so it's very, if you're looking at it in a very binary fashion, it's very problematic to have a medical marijuana card or be using marijuana and then pursuing your rights under the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
So, sorry.
No, please.
Get it.
So how do you feel about the new Florida law that doesn't require you to have a concealed permit?
So I think initially I don't have an issue with it, because for me, I look at the concealed carry license as more bureaucracy. That's a way for the states to make money, a way for the governments to track us, and I don't think it serves a further end as was intended. I think it's good to have a concealed carry license because if you're in a situation with law enforcement or otherwise, it shows that you are a lawful carrier of a firearm. It shows that you have some basic understanding of a firearm and its use. And so I like it to the extent that it qualifies you in a certain sense.
So when you're talking about rights there, when you're 18, you have it gains you a whole bunch of rights. Gives you the right to vote, buy cigarettes, porno, lotto. Gets
Get
you a lot of
arrested.
things. Yeah, you can get arrested as an adult. The age of buying a firearm, do you think that should be 21 or older?
It's a good question. It's a great question. And I think it becomes a very subjective question. I'm a father of 2 young children now. I'm a little bit older. And so the answer I will give you today may not be the same answer I would have given you 20 years ago in my 20s, single with no children. And so I think about what a great responsibility we get to have as owners of firearms. I mean, they're a great privilege, they're a great right, and they're a great responsibility if you're smart about it, because they can be lethal. They can be the difference between life and death for you, your loved ones. This is how countries are won and lost, and it's a great sense of power that you wield. It's a matter of wielding it responsibly, and any of us at any age can look back when they were younger from that age and things that they thought they knew as well that they didn't know, and things they thought they did as well that they didn't do as well. And just looking at a firearm, even with the polymer-based, they're not inherently light, right? So it's a heavy object, right? And now if you keep around chambered, it can be really dangerous if not used properly.
Yeah.
And so the way we have an age limit for driving, we're 16 with a permit, and say, well, when I was 14, my dad let me drive and I could do it. Maybe, but you have to think in generalities at that point. Like, not every 18 to 21-year-old is the same.
Yeah.
And not everyone has the same education in firearms or background. And so, like we said a moment ago, you don't need the concealed carry license anymore. You just go and buy it with no education. And maybe just me getting older and being biased in that way, but I like the idea, because the question really isn't should it be 21, it's should it be any age? Well, the one at 18 or one at 16 or one at 22, like what?
Yeah.
21 is this arbitrary number that we came to when people live to their 40s. And so
Right.
I am past my expiration right now. And so I don't, maybe I'm just dating myself here, but I feel it's good to have some kind of cutoff point, because we want to stay safe.
Correct.
We don't want it, no one wants to see kids hurt. And then obviously if you don't have a limit, we could lose it in other fashions. So I think it's a necessary evil, and there are exceptions under 21, like you can be under 21 with a guardian or hunting or certain rifles, but the idea of someone under 21 in high school carrying around a firearm, especially what's going on nowadays, and we're trying to protect youth, and we're trying to protect our loved ones, it's daunting.
Yeah.
And it's I can think of worse scenarios than having to be 21.
Yeah.
And I say that being over 21, so it doesn't apply to me. I think that it's okay.
With going to have kids, I was the best dad in the world. And then I had 2 boys. Yeah. Yeah, completely get that.
So what's the best safety tip you could give a gun owner?
That's
Yeah,
probably
especially a young gun owner who is just trying to get into it.
Sure. That's probably my favorite question of the night so far is practice. I think everything we've talked about, every issue has come back to education. So, like any other topic, whether you're a gamer, you like gaming, or you like sports, practice, learn the craft, learn your trade, learn how the firearm works, learn how to disassemble it, learn safety protocol, get to the range and learn how to use it responsibly, because everyone's heard of scenarios where some of the worst firearm incidents are ones where people weren't educated and then they were fearful with the power in their hand. Like, what are we talking about? Not knowing how to use it and not trusting themselves and not trusting the firearm. So learn your craft,
Do you think there should be a schooling or a class needed to be taken? I know when you take a firearm safety course for a conceal.
Even a hunting safety
Yeah,
course, like you go through all types. You do black